Hello and welcome to Songs for the Struggling Artist, the blogcast. This is episode 472. My name is Emily Rainbow Davis. Hello and welcome. I'm very glad you're here. The way this works is I'm going to just say very little. I don't feel like I have a lot of intro for this one. Then I'm going to read you the blog and then I'm going to sing you a song related to the blog. And that's how this rolls. Today's blog is inspired by an art show that I went to, and I'm just going to get right into it. It is called A Blurry Line Between Art and Advertising. To get to the exhibit, I took the shuttle from Times Square and was about to walk up the stairs to Grand Central Station when I noticed two people taking photos of the stairs. It suddenly dawned on me that the image on the stairs was not an advertisement, but part of the exhibition I was on my way to see. When I got up those stairs, there were more photos on the turnstiles and the name of the exhibit. If I hadn't known, I'd have thought they were ads for some kind of clothing line or vitamins or something. Likewise for the images pasted on the subway walls. The images were lovely, but the context troubled me. It continues to trouble me, so I thought I better write about it to try and work out why. I wanted to see this exhibit because I have been following the artist ever since he started posting his photos and stories on Facebook as Humans of New York. Those posts have been interesting glimpses into the lives of my fellow New Yorkers. So when the artist, Brandon Stanton, filled Grand Central Station with his works, I wanted to check it out. In all the places ads would usually go, there were photos and videos of New Yorkers that he'd taken. On one hand, it was beautiful to see the gorgeous diversity of the humans who live here blown up and spread around the station and the subway. On the other hand, by placing all these bodies and faces where we'd normally see ads, the effect was turning them into advertising. If I hadn't known what this was, I'd have assumed it was an advertising campaign for a product called Dear New York. After all, more than any human faces, we saw big signs that read, Dear New York, everywhere. Rather than walking away moved by the beautiful diversity of my fellow New Yorkers, I felt my fellow New Yorkers had become models for an ad campaign that they hadn't been paid for. Or possibly they had been paid. I don't quite understand the economics of this exhibition. But in any case, by replacing all the ads with photos, the effect for me was turning the art into advertising. I thought how fortunate the companies that bought ads there next would be, as this exhibition will have trained people to actually look at them rather than walk on by. After seeing as much art as I could find in the main hall of the station, I decided to take the train home and found more images than I had seen upstairs. I stood in the subway station for half an hour, watching the full cycle of photos and video spread across the video monitors that usually sell us things. I saw a lot of charming images, and I was not sorry to have seen them, but the medium and the experience of seeing them was very strange. And no one else stopped to look for longer than a second the entire time I was there. I suspect that was because everyone just assumed those images were ads for something. These kinds of images are nice because it highlights the wide variety of people who live here or pass through. But the thing is, most New Yorkers appreciate this diversity of our city already. Many of us live here because of it. We love how different we all are from each other. We appreciate things like Humans of New York because we can pause for a second and look at and hear from individuals. It's not a surprise to see the multitudes we contain here. I suspect even the bigots secretly enjoy it a little bit. People have been taking photos of the glorious diversity of New Yorkers for as long as we have had photos. And a lot of public art exhibits in the past have explored the same theme. I remember one where we had a series of giant faces on construction walls throughout Times Square. Big images of the people who live here are a thing. A very nice thing. It never gets old, even if it's not particularly original. The thing is, New Yorkers generally like other New Yorkers, even when we hate them. We spend a lot of time pretending not to see each other as we make our way through the world. Sometimes we exert a lot of effort to try and ignore one another. But we like to have permission to look at each other, and events like this are essentially permission to stare and appreciate ourselves. And I wasn't going to get into it because it feels like another issue entirely, but there's also this piano that featured prominently in the conversation around this exhibit. I didn't ever hear anyone play it the entire time I was there, but the pitch was that they'd brought in a super fancy Steinway concert grand, and students at Juilliard would be playing it all day. Then a notice went out that they were looking for people to play it once the Juilliard musicians called it a night at 10 o'clock. The call was for someone to play for an hour after 10 o'clock for $500. And $500 is a decent payment for a musician. But in order to get the gig, you had to write a little statement about why this would be meaningful for you, why it would make a difference, why it would be special to play the Steinway. In other words, you wouldn't get the gig because of your musicianship. You'd get it because you wrote the best sycophantic story. I read it as whichever musician can blow the most smoke will receive $500 to play background music for the people of Grand Central. Not to mention the part of the call that got under the skin of the pianist in my life, which was that the ad wanted to make sure all applicants understood that this piano was to be treated with dignity and respect. You know, because pianists are always destroying their very expensive instruments everywhere they go. You just can't trust them not to show up with a hammer or poop on the keyboard unless you tell them not to. No disrespect to anyone who answered that call. $500 is $500. But that $500 was not for playing. It was for the sucking up. I've applied to enough stuff to recognize when I'm being asked to do that, and I've done it too. But this gig in particular, now that I'm thinking about it in terms of advertising, it's not an opportunity to play at Carnegie Hall, where everyone sits quietly to listen to you perform. It's an opportunity to play in a busy, noisy train station. It's an opportunity to do a sanctioned busk. And it's an opportunity to provide background music for an ad campaign. $500 is not nearly enough for that, I think. Talk about dignity and respect. My favorite ever New York City moment happened right before I left for grad school, when I thought I was leaving for good, and an incredible community choir came pouring out of the church at St. Mark's, full of life and beautiful sound and enthusiasm and art. Everyone nearby was so moved and lit up and delighted. And then someone in an apartment behind the church opened up his window and shouted, "Shut the fuck up!" before slamming his window closed again. And I loved every piece of this moment. I loved the singers and I loved the shouter. And every New Yorker I've ever told this story to feels exactly the same. We have all felt ourselves the singers, the shouters, and the observers of the moment. Once, walking down 7th Avenue, my path was obstructed by a guy on the ground, holding a camera and talking to another man sitting on the ground of this very busy corner. At first, I was annoyed because they were impeding the flow of foot traffic, and then I realized it was Brandon Stanton of Humans of New York doing his thing, and I thought, oh, okay, neat. And I looked forward to seeing that post later. It was genuinely a man on the street talking to another man on the street, in all its mess and annoyance. I guess the thing is, at this exhibit, I saw so much slick presentation that I know was very expensive and fundamentally looked like advertising, and I'm not fully convinced that it wasn't advertising. And I know the lines between art and advertising are blurry in some situations, but I guess maybe I needed some guy to open a window somewhere nearby and tell everyone to shut the fuck up. I changed trains at Grand Central maybe a week or two after this exhibit closed, and some of the stuff was still up, like in the subway station, which I found also very confusing. Like, on one hand, I was kind of glad because I was like, oh, I didn't see this, hallway of it before. I didn't see all these images. But also, like, we're moving so fast, transferring from one train to another, and, like, there's no time to stop and, like, actually look at things and read the statements, and I don't know. It's like this funny thing of, like, public art that is, who is it for? I'm rushing between one train and another, and who's stopping to look at it? I'm guessing most people are not. And then we're treating art like this thing we're supposed to rush past, which I don't love. I don't love that. I feel like art is a thing that it's nice to take a moment with and enjoy it. The only exception, I will say, or one of my favorite exceptions, is on the train, this train out of Brooklyn, like basically when you're leaving Brooklyn, is on one side this public art piece that basically acts like an animation. So as the train, moves quickly past, you can see these shapes change and form different shapes, and it's like a little shape dance that happens, and there's multiple versions of it. It's like these little short films that happen because of the movement of the train. And those I absolutely love and will, try and sit on that train to catch the animations just past DeKalb Avenue. So, I think it is possible to have like fast moving art, but like something that's wants to be considered, it's not great to have to rush past it. Anyway, that's a whole other thing that happened well after I wrote this thing. Yeah. So what song? Well, last week I did East Asheville Hardware, which is, I think, a kind of interesting blend of art and advertising. It's definitely, I don't think it was intended as advertising, but it definitely makes me want to go to East Asheville Hardware. But then this week I was like, oh, maybe a song about New York, because this is really a very like, hey, what it is to be in New York kind of piece. Oh, and there's a motorcycle just to like really give us some New York atmosphere. Anyway, so I thought, a song about New York. I first tried to see if I could learn New York, New York, a hell of a town. And guess what? It's written by Leonard Bernstein. So like there's just no way. He does not write an easy song to play on the guitar, let me tell you right now. So I let that one go pretty quickly. And then I looked at a bunch of other songs. Do you know that there are a lot of songs about New York City? But I decided to go with The Sidewalks of New York because part of this blog takes place on the sidewalk in New York. And I feel like that's where Brandon Stanton did his most interesting work, was literally on the sidewalk. So I felt like The Sidewalks of New York were good thematically. And also it's a song that has been around. Like this song was a hit in the late 1800s and has enjoyed many revivals. And while I was searching for the melody of a few of these extra verses that I hadn't ever heard, I did a search of Sidewalks of New York on Spotify, and guess what Spotify was like, oh, do you want to hear Dear New York? And I was like, what? And apparently there is an audiobook of the book of Dear New York, which this exhibit was an advertisement for, if you ask me. Anyway, it was like in my search for Sidewalks of New York was this audiobook of this exhibit, which I was like, well, I guess that clinches it. I guess this is the right song to do because Spotify even thinks that audiobook is what I'm looking for. So it's going to be Sidewalks of New York. I did a little bit of research in that I knew there were more verses, but then I also had heard versions where there were fewer verses, and there's like competing verses, and some of the verses seem like they might be kind of racist. So I spent some time kind of in the researchy space, and I'm not fully convinced that there's no racism in this version that I'm doing here. I tried to follow the example of someone mentioned on Wikipedia because apparently there's a part about a guinea, which is a slur against Italian Americans. But in the version I was initially looking at it doesn't say guinea, it says ginny, which is probably a slur of the slur, is my guess. Anyway, I decided not to say ginny and to go with the example that they mentioned in Wikipedia, which was Tony. Tony plays the organ. I don't know. But the song is kind of old, and it has some roots in vaudeville, and you just never know when they're going to sneak in a racism when you're not looking. I hope that we don't got any here, but I cannot be sure. I did choose not to do a couple of the verses that were obviously problematic. So it's mostly just a lot of key changes, but that's good fun, right? A lot of versions of this song that I listened to, and I did listen to a lot of them were really just the chorus being repeated twice. So, I mean, by doing it more than that, I'm already ahead of several quite famous people. So, anyway, I will play that for you in just a minute. Meanwhile, thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, that's awesome. Please tell someone about it. Like, review, subscribe in any app or multiple apps. Go crazy. And if you'd like to support it with your money, that would be amazing even more. It's patreon.com/Emily R. Davis is the hotspot, but there's also Ko-fi, there's PayPal. You can do a paid subscription on Substack. If you have a place that you prefer to support artists, let me know about it. I'm happy to join. And mostly I am just very grateful to have your ears on this experience. Thank you so much for listening. All right, so I'm going to give to you Sidewalks of New York, and enjoy. East side, west side, all around the town. The kids sang Ring Around Rosie. London Bridge is falling down. Boys and girls together, me and Mamie O'Rourke. We tripped the light fantastic on the sidewalks of New York. Down in front of Casey's old brown wooden stoop, on a summer's evening, we formed a merry group. Boys and girls together, we would sing and waltz, while Tony played the organ on the sidewalks of New York. East side, west side, all around the town. The kids sang Ring Around Rosie. London Bridge is falling down. Boys and girls together, me and Amy O'Rourke. We trip the light fantastic on the sidewalks of New York. East side, west side, all around the town. The kids sang Ring Around Rosie. London Bridge is falling down. Boys and girls together, me and Mamie O'Rourke. We tripped a light fantastic on the sidewalks of New York.